Hello, and welcome to all who have joined us today, be it from Washington, D.C., or Sacramento, or here in the greater Los Angeles area. My name is Jennifer Poulakidis, and I am the Associate Vice Chancellor for Government and Community Relations at UCLA. I think most of you, if not all, are familiar with our office and the wonderful colleagues who I work with on federal, state, and local government issues, as well as community relations for our campus. We are so pleased to have you with us virtually today, and we very much look forward to seeing you soon in person, maybe even on campus. Speaking of campus, we are in the midst of week 3 of our fall quarter, and the whole campus is buzzing with energy and enthusiasm. It's great to be back, and it's especially wonderful to have students back and excited to be learning in person again. And now for our feature presentation. It is a great pleasure to introduce to you 3 amazing UCLA leaders who will brief you on their efforts to assertively reach into our LA K-12 schools and engage students on opportunities for higher education, including at UCLA. Yolanda Copeland Morgan, the Vice Provost of Enrollment Management at UCLA, is a nationally recognized leader in K-12 and higher education. She oversees undergraduate admission, financial aid and scholarships, strategic partnerships, and community engagement, as well as UCLA's nearly $1 billion financial aid and scholarship budget for the undergraduate college, specialty, and professional schools. In June 2021, she testified before the U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions on COVID-19 response and recovery in higher education, with a specific focus on the significant impact of the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds, known as HERF. She also testified previously before a U.S. House Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce Development about strengthening federal student aid. She was chair of the College Board and serves on the advisory boards of UNCF Gates Millennium Scholars, Cambridge International Higher Education, and Reimagining College Access at the Learning Policy Institute. Dr. Simone Rahotep serves as the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement. With a focus on issues of outreach, access, and equity, her unit develops high-touch, high-quality, free programming, both on and off campus. Her events target historically underrepresented groups, including first-generation, low-income, and foster youth, inspiring them to be competitive college applicants. Dr. Justin Patterson serves as the director of the Early Academic Outreach Program and BRUINCORPS. His programs span across 48 high schools in 5 school districts, reach well over 10,000 students each year, and are designed to increase the college competitiveness of low-income, first-generation, and underrepresented minority students. Dr. Patterson's research interest currently focuses on the role that caring relationships in schools have on student resilience and academic achievement, and he teaches an undergraduate education course in UCLA's School of Education and Information Studies. And I'll turn it over now to Yolanda.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with this group of important legislative leaders. I especially want to thank all of you who are listening for being here today and for the policies and funding you have provided for K-12 education and programs to schools and school districts. Your work is critical if we are to improve access, opportunity, and pathways to higher education for all students. This year, nearly 168,000 students applied to UCLA, the most applications of any school in the country. And I'm happy to say that the entering class of 2021 is the strongest class academically and the most diverse in UCLA's history. And by diverse, I mean high-achieving students from a broad range of social, economic, racial, ethnic, cultural, and geographic backgrounds. This success represents years of strategic work that you're going to hear about today. We believe that preparing students to be competitively eligible, not minimally eligible for college, starts long before high school. In fact, if we wait until high school or 11th or 12th grade, it's too late to prepare them to be competitively eligible. All we can do at that point is to help students fill out their college application. The work to provide students with a pathway to higher education must begin much earlier, but no later than the 8th grade. If they don't take algebra in the 8th grade, they won't take calculus in the 12th grade. And calculus is an example of the rigorous courses students need to be successful in college and to be prepared. Students from minority and other underrepresented backgrounds may not have access to this kind of information or to the kinds of teachers, counseling, or other resources needed to prepare to be competitively eligible for college. As a public university, we believe that excellence requires diversity. So our strategy is to give students in underrepresented communities the information, counseling, and other kinds of support they need to succeed. We have been successful because we work collaboratively with students, families, teachers, schools, the school districts, community organizations, and with leaders like you. Our goal is to build relationships of trust. Let me say that again. Critical to our work is to build relationships of trust with students, our communities, and our elected officials. And our success is reflected in the increased number of applications, admits, and enrollments of students from diverse backgrounds. Today, you're going to hear from two extraordinary leaders on my team who are in charge of our strategic outreach programs. They have inspired me and countless others on our campus, as well as leaders in our local communities and across our state. I hope they will inspire you today to keep advocating for the policies and funding that UCLA and so many dedicated colleges and universities need to provide equity, access, and pathways to higher education for incredible scholars everywhere. Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Simone Rahotep, the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Yolanda, and to Jennifer for those warm introductions. Hello to everyone out there. Really excited and glad that you're here with us this morning. We have a lot of stuff to share with you and a lot we want to tell you about. We don't always get the chance to kind of tell what we do. We're often just very much into the work. And so this is an exciting opportunity for both myself and Dr. Patterson to kind of give you a little bit of insight into some of the things that are happening throughout the year out of our offices. So I definitely want to kind of just jump right in. And as Yolanda mentioned, we know that UCLA is an amazing institution that's known worldwide. We're also a flagship institution here in the city of Los Angeles. And because of that, we also know that UCLA really does have an obligation to provide access and opportunity for our communities, right? We strive to kind of, in our work, build bridges, to build pathways, to build pipelines for students, all students, but especially those from our first generation, our low income and historically underrepresented groups. And to that end, Vice Provost Copeland Morgan had the foresight to bring all of our kind of different outreach efforts within enrollment management and put them under one umbrella organization. And with that, I serve as the inaugural director for strategic partnerships and community engagement. And as you can see on screen with our vision and our mission, we're really committed to access and equity, educational access and equity, and especially amongst those groups that we were just discussing. In our work, I think it's really important to understand. So I'm just trying to get our slide to move forward just a little bit. Let's see. Just having just a moment. It's not moving forward for me there. So we're having just a little bit of a technical issue. Give me just 1 second as we try to move to the next slide. Thank you. So you see here a little bit about kind of what our pillars are, what we're really focused on. And it's important for us that we're working collaboratively, right? With students, with families, with schools, community-based organizations, institutions of faith, etc. Our goal is to really inspire students to strive for higher education, to engage with our communities through especially innovative and relevant programming, to focus on those particular communities that often get underserved or unappreciated and unengaged, and to educate our families and our youth about what it means to be a competitive applicant to a college or university. And also, we really want to work to partner with existing resources, with the existing agencies, with our schools and our communities to make sure we're talking about college access, but we're also doing that in a way that supports what's already there. Because we know we don't have all the answers either. And our communities have lots of great, amazing programs and people. And we want to kind of support those, engaged with them so that it is really a true partnership. What you'll see here is kind of, as I talked about this umbrella organization, we really have sort of 4 unique units within our departments, and we're going to talk a little bit about each of those today. In this kind of multifaceted approach of doing outreach, we're trying to make sure we're getting people at different places. And we know that all students don't necessarily want to come to UCLA, but we know that if they are competitive and understand what it means to be competitive for a selective institution like UCLA, they're going to have choices. They're going to be competitive anywhere they want to go that's the right fit for them and for their families. So I'm going to take a little more time to talk about strategic partnerships and community engagement. And then Justin, Dr. Patterson, is going to come on and he's going to talk about the Destination College Advising Corps, Early Academic Outreach Programs, and BRUINCORPS, which are the 3 units that he serves as the director. And so in strategic partnerships and community engagement, we really focus on high-performing scholars, often 8th through 12th grade, our first-generation students, our low-income students, as I mentioned. And we also host programs throughout the year. Many different kinds of programs, both on and off campus. We work throughout the year, including summer residential programs. We have faith-based initiatives that are doing workshops on financial aid, on admissions. We do volunteer projects. We do information fairs, all kinds of different things to engage people kind of where they are. And then we also do both large-scale events and some smaller events. Obviously, after a pandemic, we've had to turn all of our programs to virtual formats, but we're really hoping that in this next year, we're going to be able to come back to campus and to go back out into the community to have different kinds of engagements. On the screen here, you'll see just some examples of our flyers that we usually send out to the community to tell them about the events that we're doing. And we really work hard to try to provide workshops and events that are comfortable, that are accessible. And as you can see, it's a mix of both on and off campus events. Our Get College Ready program in the past was about 600 people at the UCLA campus for both the students and their caregivers. We also had events like our STEM workshop this year that we did in collaboration with the National Society of Black Engineers, our student group on campus, and they actually led an online virtual program where students were able to program their own video game live, kind of all happening at the same time, and they created a little basketball game that they could play. And this was a huge interactive workshop that was a great success. We've also done, like I said, our residential programs, and even we've done in the past events at Starbucks, where normally this time of year we would be having information sessions at local Starbucks for about 30 minutes, where we came in and talked about the UC application process and helped people in their neighborhoods get ready to do these kind of preparation for the application that's due in November. And here I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our signature programs. And I think I jumped forward just one. There we go. The Summer Research Institute is one of our signature programs. It's an amazing event that we had been doing where it was a 6-day residential program on campus. Students, rising sophomores, got to be exposed to social science research. It gave the students an amazing experience that they could add to their college application and also inspired them to see college, research, and social change as exciting and relevant things to their lives. The picture on the left, you'll see our students working in their small group teams in a university library, utilizing both technology as well as, working with our current UCLA students as team leaders. In this program, we had high performing students, 3.5 GPAs and above, and they were from all over the city, all over the county, everywhere. And students got to work in small groups and deal with social justice issues. And they came up with their own topics and worked on trying to solve problems. How might they use research to move forward and make change? And you can see here some of the examples of homelessness, environmental stress on low-income students, fighting the unseen social contextual factors of the school to prison pipeline. It's amazing what these students want to do and how they got excited about the work that we were doing. And their instructors in this program were current doctoral students here at UCLA. So it was a great way for us to show them the kind of educational pipeline, even beyond high school, college, graduate school, et cetera. Another great program for us has been the Get Career Ready program, which we just started this year. This was our pilot program. And this was our newest thing launched, like I said, in the summer. And it addresses really a key issue around the importance of careers, but understanding how college is related to career development. And as a part of this program, we introduced scholars to various pathways in particular fields. And this one was a focus on medicine and community health. And it really got students inspired. They got really excited. We had high performing students, over 60% of them female, over 60% of them first generation students, over 54% of them being Latinx students or Latinx biracial. And we also had family incomes. Over 56% of our participants, their family income was below $50,000 a year. And so we're really trying to target those groups we talked about and get them excited about the next steps. And you can see here a few of their kind of comments about what they got out of the program and why they thought it was an impactful thing. And I think it's really important that students get to see themselves. We made sure that our guest speakers were relevant to their communities, students who could talk about where they were, how they may have been first generation students and what it was like for them to transition into the careers that they had, and what some of the pitfalls have been. What are some of the things they wish they had known in high school and how they address those kind of challenges. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about a special program that was started back in 2014. And this is the UCLA LAUSD Collaborative. In 2014, Vice Provost Copeland Morgan worked with who would become the then Superintendent, Michelle King, and in response to a federal mandate from the Office of Civil Rights that said the LAUSD had to address some of the different challenges they were having and the performance disparities between African American students and their counterparts in the district. And as a way to kind of bring together key staff from the district and UCLA, we used this collaborative as a way to address and look at the issues of competitive admission. We tried to provide clarity and transparency about UCLA's holistic review process and stimulate conversations about how to engage, how to support and inspire academic excellence, right? Especially in trying to increase the college trajectory of African American students. Now, our collaborative meets 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and usually on our campus. Hopefully we'll get to do that again. And we bring together key decision makers from the district, including administrators, principals, counselors, and coordinators from each of 28 schools, along with the leadership and enrollment management, our campus resources, and also many special guests. As you can see on screen, we've seen a number of significant gains for African American students, and this is just a portion of what's been happening. And so we're really excited about this work because it's a way we also know that in doing this work and in working and focusing on African American students who were performing much lower in some of these categories, we also know that the things that the schools put into place help everyone. All the students benefit, and pushing things like making sure students are completing their A through G requirements, that they're getting them with a C or better, that students are enrolling in rigorous classes like AP and honors, that they are taking the AP exams and passing them with 3s or higher. These are things that are going to help them to be competitive at whatever institution they choose for their future. And so we're just excited to be a part of that. And we're looking forward to even more impact for the schools and for the communities that we're trying to serve. And so now what I want to do is turn it over to my partner, Dr. Justin Patterson, and he can talk to you a little bit more about the work that he's doing in his area.
Thank you, Simone. I'm sorry, I had a little technical difficulty unmuting myself. But thank you, Simone, and good morning to all of you. It is a pleasure to speak with you this morning about some programs that are very important to me. I'm personally a proud product of both the Inglewood and Los Angeles Unified School Districts, and my connections run deep as my grandmother taught elementary school, my father taught middle school, and my mother taught high school in LA. I like to see myself as an extension of them as I tie the pipeline together, bringing higher ed into the mix. I personally came into this work in the late 1990s when California voters passed Proposition 209 and the UC Regents passed SP1 and SP2, eliminating affirmative action in college admissions. Since then, I've devoted my career and research interests to opening pathways to higher education for all communities, regardless of background. I'd like to start with this quote from a student I interviewed several years ago when discussing how he overcame his own life challenges related to being a foster child, attending 3 or 4 high schools, being separated from his siblings and mother at multiple points throughout his childhood and adolescence, to getting to the point where he graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's and a PhD. He told me that going through the foster care system, he assumed that life was going to be bad and be negative, but he had these 2 mentors, and they instilled positivity and hope in him. And it was, and this is the key for me, it was the simple things. It was them inquiring how he was, how was school going. And he said just little things that they did to show compassion and they cared, things that showed someone actually believed he could make it. And to me, that quote encapsulates my programs and our programs and the work that we do. We recognize how important it is for us to provide students with information and college prep activities that they need to navigate from high school to college successfully. However, our foundation starts with the relationships that we forge. We start from the belief that all students can be successful in school and beyond with the proper support around them. That support, I believe, comes from many places: caring teachers, counselors who push students to excel, community members who volunteer, and university partners like us who show up and tell students that they do, in fact, have what it takes to make it. Anytime I get to speak about my programs, I tell people that above anything else, this is relationship work. And based on my experience in the field and my own research on both educational resilience and institutional care, I'm convinced that the connections we build with students and communities are essential to our success and to their success as well. So I'll hop off of my soapbox for a moment and tell you a little bit about my programs. I have a deep history with the Early Academic Outreach Program. When I was in high school, I was a participant. When I came to UCLA and I was in college, I was an undergraduate employee of the program. The day after college graduation, I became a professional staff member, and now I'm the director of the program. EAOP is the state's largest outreach effort with programs on all 10 UC campuses. It was established in 1976, and the mission really has remained unchanged. It's really about expanding post-secondary education opportunities for educationally disadvantaged students in the way, and Simone alluded to this a moment ago, but the way that we define educationally disadvantaged is low income, first-gen college goers, English language learners, and underrepresented minorities. And our goal is to help them become at least eligible, but ideally competitive for selective colleges all over the country. One reason that we exist is because student to counselor ratios remain very high in California, and academic counselors and college counselors are stretched thin. We offer an additional layer of support to counselors and students to ensure that as many students as possible have accurate college prep information and support throughout the college process. With EAOP, my program partners with 48 schools and school districts, including Los Angeles Unified, Inglewood, Pasadena, Antelope Valley, and Montebello. And we have a cohort that exceeds over 8,000 high school students each year. In each partner school, my staff work with counselors, teachers, family members to identify that cohort in the ninth grade, and then support them all the way through high school graduation with a number of services, primarily focused around academic advising and transcript evaluation, but also including college application and financial aid assistance, parent workshops, and so much more. We bring the students to campus for Saturday programs and summer residential programs. And we also have a parent ambassador program that we're really proud of, where we bring parents and caregivers to campus for a 2-day, 1-night stay in the dorms to demystify the college experience and arm them with college prep information so that they can assist their own students, but also return to their communities and assist in the parent centers at their high schools as well. It's very important to us that, we're not only doing this work ourselves, but ideally we're building other people around us who can help to carry that work on, beyond us. And even though we are a UC and UCLA program, we are not recruiting students for UCLA, even though we would love for them to come to our great institution. But we know that many students have other, choices and other dreams for their life. And we see it as our mission to help them prepare to go on to post-secondary wherever it is that they choose to go. So I won't get into all of our program impact data. You can see some of it on the screen. We're extremely proud that 85% of our seniors complete the A through G courses that make them eligible for UC and Cal State admission. And then 72% of our students go on to 4-year colleges and universities. When we add in the community college number, that goes all the way up to 96% of our students going on to some form of post-secondary education in EAOP. We're always in search of new ways to provide more support to the schools and communities where we serve. So in March of 2020, through the hard work of Vice Provost Yolanda Copeland Morgan, we launched a new initiative called the Destination College Advising Corps in 3 of our EAOP schools. In a short 18 months, despite the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've grown tenfold and are now in 30 schools throughout the greater Los Angeles area, where my EAOP schools receive service from professional staff 1 day per week. With the College Advising Corps model, we're able to place a full-time college advisor at this set of 30 schools. We use a near-peer model, so our advisors are at most 2 years out of college, and they commit to 2 years of service within our program, again, with the goal of increasing academic competitiveness and raising college-going rates of the student body at the schools where they're working. Because the advisors are full-time, we're able to deepen our connections with students, faculty, administrators, and caregivers. We're also able to shift from a cohort-based model like we have in EAOP to a whole school model, again, because the advisors are on site 5 days a week rather than just 1 day per week. And even while working remotely through the pandemic last year, we were able to assist students in submitting over 3,400 college applications. We helped over 3,100 students complete financial aid applications. And through events and workshops and presentations, we had over 15,000 student contacts with this Destination College Advising Corps program. And so we're really excited about what we'll be able to accomplish now that we're back to in-person. No doubt you are all familiar with how difficult it is to do this type of work, while working remotely. But now that our staff is on site and on each of our campuses, we know that we're going to have even greater success this coming year. Finally, I'd like to just talk really briefly about the last program that I'm fortunate enough to run, the BRUINCORPS program. This is a service learning and civic engagement program for our undergraduates at UCLA. As a public land-grant institution, UCLA takes the commitment to our surrounding community very seriously, and we actively create opportunities for our students to develop as global citizens during their time on our campus. So BRUINCORPS' purpose is twofold. On the one hand, we contribute to the academic development of struggling students from kindergarten through 9th grade, with the intent of bringing them to grade level proficiency in either English language arts for our elementary school students or algebra proficiency for our middle and high school students. We know that teachers have a myriad responsibilities and do not always have the time or the human resources to meet the individual needs of all students. So we see our tutors as filling that gap. They work with teachers to understand areas where students are having trouble and conduct one-on-one and small group tutoring sessions to help students catch up in the classroom. Of course, an added benefit is having college students from similar backgrounds as the students on their school campuses as role models and as examples of what they can accomplish. Our student staff, who are all federal work study recipients, also grow as individuals themselves as part of our program. We invest heavily in their development through monthly trainings, through an education course that I teach, by taking them through exercises like community asset mapping, and then having them do regular service learning projects in communities all over Los Angeles. As a result, you can see some of the results from for our undergrad staff, but as a result, they report that their empathy, their open-mindedness, and their appreciation for diversity grows during their time in our program. And so that's something that we're very proud of, not only the work that they're doing with the students that they serve, but also what they get and what we're able to help to create as far as civic engagement among undergrads who will be graduating and going out into the workforce and into the community, knowing that they're going to go with a greater appreciation for diversity and for service. I'm sorry. This next slide here really just gives you a picture of the schools where we serve. You can see that we're as far north as the Antelope Valley. We extend down into the San Fernando Valley and Pasadena, and then in every community throughout Los Angeles proper, right? From South LA to as far west as the beach to East LA, and then down into the South Bay as well. So it's a wide range. We really do what we can to support as many communities as is possible. That's something that we're also very proud of. And then finally, I just wanted to put up a slide with some testimonials. These are from our college counselor partners talking about the experience working with our staff. They point out the fact that our staff becomes leaders on their campuses, and they really do a lot to help develop a college-going culture. We found that during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were essential to helping college counselors and counselors reach their students to make sure that they were getting the assistance that they needed on college applications, college essays and financial aid, reviewing transcripts and things of that nature. And that last quote, we're really proud of, because the college counselor described one of our staff as a superhero. We don't come into communities that we serve with any type of hero complex, but at the same time, we do want our work to reflect the standard that UCLA sets, and that we're coming in and really doing a great job to support communities that need support and service. I know we'll get to some questions in a moment, but before we get there, I'd like to turn it over to Vice Provost Yolanda Copeland Morgan, who will close this part of our presentation out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patterson and Dr. Simone Rahotep. I am always inspired, even though I work with you every day. I am always just touched by your commitment to access. And what I want our listeners to know is that all of us have been touched by the programs and services that you approve and that you advocate for in our different legislative houses. So we appreciate that, and we want our students to know that as well, so that they don't see us as someone from a community that is different from where they come from. I myself am a product of Los Angeles Unified School District. And so we want our students and parents to know that, because that way they relate with us. And so this work is incredibly important to the work that we are doing on our campus, and to some of the data that I'm going to show you. I think in no small part, the application growth that you see on this slide at UCLA is not only because we have incredible academic opportunities and co-curricular opportunities for our students, but increasingly these high number of applications are reflecting increases in diversity, increases in first-generation students, African-American students, for example. Those applications increased over 44% this year. For our Latinx and Chicanx students, they increased over 34% this year. And we see application increases from our rural communities, for students from reservations, and our Native American students and Alaskan Native students, and even in our Southeast Asian community that we reach out to. We talk a lot about Asians being overrepresented in higher education, but there is a lot of underrepresentation amongst the Asian community too, and Vietnamese and Cambodians and other students there. So we work hard there, and you can see there is a lot of demand. If we go to the next slide, the reason that I show you this information is because I want you to see not only the number of students that UCLA serves each year, but I want you to make note of our commitment to transfer students. We know research shows that disproportionately underrepresented students from low-income background and minority backgrounds, and underrepresented in terms of rural and other geographies, they tend to start their education at the community college level. And we want to make sure that when we talk about higher education pathways, that we have pathways for all students. That includes those who, for whatever reason, cannot go straight into a four-year education. And so we have a commitment at UCLA that, and across the University of California system, that for every 2 freshman students we enroll out of high school, we enroll 1 transfer student. And for many of our campuses, that ratio is higher. And if you go to the next slide, I wanted to give you a glimpse of the work that we've been doing in terms of, in a proposition state where we cannot use race or gender, how this work that our 2 speakers and my colleagues have shared with you is impacting the racial composition of the student body overall. And it's not only their work, we make sure that when we are deploying our recruitment resources in our admissions office that does recruitment for those 11th and 12th graders, that we are looking at the data that is available to us across each school district, and disproportionately spending our efforts in those school districts where the college going rate is the lowest. And what we're finding is that as we build these relationships with superintendents and with principals and headmasters, is that we're developing a college, we're contributing to developing that college going culture in our high schools. So you can see that we are making progress. The progress, sometimes we're very frustrated with how slow it is, but we've more than doubled the number of African-American students at UCLA. And increasingly, we are seeing that our Chicanx, Latinx community is growing significantly. And because that is a large population, over 50% of most school districts in the Los Angeles area and across the state of California, those numbers continue to rise. It's a little thing, it may sound like a little thing to you, but it's a big thing to me. I am really proud of that 1% for our Native American, Alaskan Native students, because for so long and too long, institutions have not been able to measure that population because they have been so small. They have been an asterisk on many, many campuses, and they are no longer an asterisk to us. So you can see how varied our strategies are to try and support all students in our communities. So with that, I want to thank you. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer so that we can have a question and answer period that will be moderated by her, both with the questions that you pre-submitted, as well as an opportunity for questions now. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Yolanda, and thank you, Justin and Simone. I did mention that these were amazing UCLA leaders, and now you know people in the work that Yolanda and Simone and Justin do. You could just see they believe it, they live it, and it is for the benefit of K-12 students in the Los Angeles area. Definitely, it benefits UCLA by bringing us diverse and well-prepared students. It's a lot of work. It's not something that that all colleges do, but as Justin mentioned, it is a part of our mission as a public research university. So thank you all so much for that great presentation and your daily work. Let me ask a question, Dr. Hotep, of you to begin. Before the COVID restrictions, what were some of the areas where you've hosted in-person programming outside of UCLA?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, yeah, the COVID, that's how it feels like it's described now, but it has put a damper on a lot of our programming in terms of what we could do in person. We miss being out in the community. We really appreciate the opportunities to be up close and personal and build, kind of comfortable relationships, talking to families one-on-one. And so in the past, we did a lot more things in person. We did, I mentioned maybe the Starbucks events where we were in various Starbucks. We were in places like Pasadena, in Inglewood, South LA, Compton, East LA. We've been to Southgate. We've been to Long Beach. Those were some of our areas. We've also done partnerships with Kaiser Permanente, the one in the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw, the newer facility that they opened there, and we were hosting informational sessions there. We've done financial aid and we've done admission workshops at that location. And then also with our faith-based initiative, we've been in multiple different kind of church locations and community locations, including areas, again, in South LA, Compton, Watts. We've done things in with Mount Zion Church of Ontario. So we were literally, we brought representatives from actually all 9 undergraduate campuses to host our UC Info Fair annually on the campus of Mount Zion. And so that was out in Ontario in the Inland Empire. Again, trying to just spread out and be, in places, any place that we could. COVID has allowed us to get a little bit more breadth in terms of, more people can access our opportunities online. So that's been one benefit, but we definitely look forward to kind of that in person. We know that there's things that people will ask you on the side of a program they'll pull you to the side and ask you personal questions that they may not be comfortable doing in a Zoom environment. So we're definitely looking forward to doing more of that, and hopefully soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Dr. Patterson, what distinguishes your program from other outreach programs?
I think, I think we're very fortunate because we are part of enrollment management on our campus. And that gives us a great benefit. My entire staff reads applications for freshman admission. And so when I think about other programs, and I certainly wouldn't want to disparage any other program, but I will highlight mine, our staff, know exactly what it takes to help a student throughout this process, right? The connection to admission, the connection to financial aid. I just think we're very prepared. and we're able to take that message into all of the communities where we serve. And I think that's very unique. That, you know, like I mentioned earlier, campuses, all the UC campuses have an early academic outreach, but they're not all connected to enrollment management like we are. And so we get the same training that, you know, admissions counselors receive. And so when we go out into the community, we're able to talk from a position of strength and understanding that many people don't have. Just this week, my staff was also conducting, you know, we were conducting counselor in services for all the counseling staff in Inglewood Unified School District. And again, that's because we know, you know, exactly what they need to know to help their students. And so I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes the work that we do. It's that connection to enrollment management. But I also think that, you know, our orientation toward those relationships and having relationship is foundational to what we do. So it's not just about reviewing a transcript, giving a student, you know, advice and telling them what classes to take and then moving on, but actually really having a long-term commitment, you know, 4 years with every student, decades at the same schools, working with, you know, schools over, you know, since I've been in the program over 20 years, many of the schools are the same that we serve. And I think all of that, you know, we're not coming into communities and then leaving communities. You know, we're there to stay, you know, as long as there's a need. And I think that those are some of the things that really distinguish us from programs that might have 3 or 5 year funding and are here today and gone tomorrow, right? We're here and we'll be there as long as there's a need. So I think that's what I would point to.
Very impressive. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Vice Provost Copeland Morgan, we have a question that was submitted live. Does UCLA or the UC system foresee any further deviations from College Board standards that are historically limiting to many low-income and middle-income families?
Thank you for that question. So I would say a couple of things. One is that we know that these exams have been limiting and that students who have unequal access to quality education don't do as well, and that makes sense. So our Board of Regents has made the decision that we will not use test scores through the fall 2024 academic year, and they will revisit that decision at that time, so that we'll make a decision about fall 25. During the interim, our faculty have been so committed to looking at the data, looking at other kinds of options for making sure that students have the best opportunities to show forth their strength. Now, what we are very interested in, that the College Board does extremely well, is preparing students for rigor. So we will continue to encourage students to take advanced placement courses, to take their sequence of A through G, to challenge themselves, and we'll continue to partner with organizations like the College Board and other, the Gates Foundations and others who are encouraging students, particularly those from underserved communities, to take rigorous courses starting in middle school. Getting that information out makes a big difference. It made a difference for many of us, and it continues to make a difference for the students that we serve.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Simone, I've got another one for you. You said that your unit targets high-performing students. So does that mean other students can't participate in your programs?
Great question. No, it doesn't mean that at all. So we do target, for a number of our programs, we do target high performing students. And so there are some events that we do that may have an academic cutoff. So we did, for instance, our overnight program, or our summer research institute, for instance. All of our programs, I forgot to mention, are free. And so we sometimes have to limit who can participate. We don't always have the capacity to bring everyone. And we're doing a residential summer program. It costs a lot of money to put people in the residence halls, to feed them, and to use all the different resources that we do, 5-6 days for a whole program. But we also try to balance all of our events with some that are open to the public, things that are not restricted by grades or by other kind of indicators, if you will. So we have, like our Get College Ready program, which when we hosted it on campus, we would have 600 people here on site, and there was no academic minimum. There was no requirement of any sort. You just had to register. And that was the only thing, just we needed to know that you were coming, because at the end of the day, we only literally had X amount of chairs that they would allow us by fire marshal to have in the room. But we want to bring everybody, right? So there's many, many programs where we try to reach out and have everyone. The events I talked about at Starbucks or at Kaiser, those events were open to the public. Anyone can participate. So we really try to make sure that we're giving the whole experience. And we also, even when we do academic requirements, we have different ones. Some might be lower than others. Some might be a high GPA. Some might be a 3.0 or above. And that's partially because for us, that's the minimum eligibility for the UC system. So we're helping students to understand this is what it's going to take to get into the UC system. But we definitely try to have a large scale options that people and families, and most of our programs, the overnights for ours are just for the students, but most of our other programs, the parents, caregivers, siblings, others are invited to come, because we know everybody has an influence in working with these students. And we want also the younger siblings to see it, to hear it, and feel like, oh, that's something I want to do. So that was a long answer to your question, but no, we're not only limited to high performing students.
Great answer. Thank you. Thank you. Justin, how do you choose the schools you work with?
Another good question. Like I mentioned in my previous response, part of it is we have these historical relationships over a number of years. And so we've made commitments to some schools, and we don't believe in coming in and just leaving. There's still work to be done. And so we'll be there to assist and to support. But then there are other schools, we've expanded this year. We added some schools in the San Fernando Valley. Part of it is just looking at the lay of the land, looking at the data. I worked with Vice Provost Copeland Morgan and Dr. Rahotep to, look at everything from admission data to, the school profile, looking at, the numbers of low income first generation college goers in the school. So we're looking at data to determine, where the need is. And then as we have capacity, then we grow. The truth is we're at capacity right now. We're the largest program in the system. None of the other campuses have a program that rivals our size and breadth. So we're at capacity, but of course we're always evaluating where we currently are. And then, we can shift around the margins if there are schools that, maybe because of change in administration or whatever, we might exit that school. We might be able to pick up another one. And then, part of it is resources, right? As resources become available, like I said, Vice Provost Copeland Morgan helped to identify several millions of dollars that allowed us to create the Destination College Advising Corps program. So when we got that influx of money, we were able to go into new schools. And so as there are resources, we do have some districts who partner with us and they cover the cost of one of our staff members. So that's also a possibility. So it's really a mix, but we really would like to make commitments to schools and then stay. But as capacity and funding comes, then we can certainly add, as need be.
Thank you, Justin. I have
Sure.
a follow-up, and this is a question that was submitted live. How would an undergraduate student at UC or at UCLA specifically get involved with these outreach programs, possibly to help you expand your capacity?
Sure. I'll go first, and then I don't know if Simone or Yolanda, you want to jump in. My programs, we hire 200 undergrads every year. And so it's really as simple as coming into the office, tell them to come see me, and we're more than happy to get them set up. We're always looking for individuals who are interested in participating in this type of work. We have a very diverse student staff population as well. They come from all over the state. come from low income and more privileged backgrounds, racially diverse as well, and also their academic diversity is present. So it's not just people who are interested in education or in any type of like social service. We have the future doctors and the future engineers and the future lawyers among the group as well. So there's no right profile. If someone's interested, we'd love to have them, come into the office, and I'll make sure my staff takes care of them.
Thank you, Justin. And
Sure.
I have one more question we're going to try to squeeze in before our time is up here. Someone pre-submitted a question about the A to G requirements. They asked, what is the purpose of them? Has data shown that students with A to G requirements graduate from UC and do better than those in other private institutions that might not require it? And is it really a barometer for success?
So you want to take it, Yolanda? I see you jumping in.
Real quick. The answer is yes, 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 right? But I want to say the purpose is to eliminate some of the disparities in educational opportunity and access for students, depending on what zip code they're in. A through G is the minimum requirements for entry into the Cal State University system and into the UC system. And what A through G, having that statewide requirement for these two systems allows us to have some equity across the types of schools and communities that students come from. So it's available. The drive is all schools should minimally offer the courses that are necessary to ensure student success. And one way of measuring that success is looking at the graduation rates across the UC system and the Cal State system. The answer is yes, when students have been minimally prepared, but of course we're talking not minimally prepared, but competitively eligible, students do better. Now, there are a lot of roadblocks. We need more financial aid, so students are working less, not worried about, and not worried about how they're gonna pay for college, worrying about loans, the opportunities for students to work on campus. The Federal Work Study program is one of my favorite. I was a work study student because it allows students to build relationships with administrators and faculties and other students on campus. Still a lot of work to do, but the answer is yes. And I think any state does not have some minimum requirements that allows all students to be prepared for college and to be successful in college, they should be revisiting those things so that we, every student is expected to, in a way, I'm just going to say we're recognizing every student's brilliance by saying you can complete an A through G course requirement.
Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you. And we're up against the clock. I want to thank our three amazing panelists and to thank our audience for joining us today. You know, I had the opportunity to hear Yolanda and Justin and Simone speak to an internal audience. And the minute their presentation was over, I approached them to say, can we do this for our legislative offices, for the offices that represent us on the federal, state, and local government arena? I hope that everybody had the opportunity to really take in the inspiring and inspired work of Yolanda and her team. And we look forward to seeing you all again. And as we said before, in person next time. Thank you again.